Hi everyone, this is Allan McKay. Welcome to episode 156. I'm talking about the one thing more important than your demo reel. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Allan McKay Podcast. Allan is an Emmy Award-winning visual effects artist and mentor to many leading industry experts. Listen in as Allan talks with other industry leaders in film, video games, and visual effects about their experience, lessons, and methodology. Allan will teach you pivotal advice to fast-track your career, better your skills, and reach your ultimate dream job. Check out the latest episodes on allanmckay.com.
Alright, welcome to a brand new episode. I'm really excited for this one. Let's get into it in 1 second. One thing I want to mention beforehand is if you haven't gotten my new book, The Ultimate Demo Reel Guide, make sure to go grab it right now. It's free and it's going to be available for free at least for a little bit longer. It's going to be published on Amazon as well as the audiobook on Audible pretty soon. But for now, if you want to get this book, which shares all the key insights that I have from building out hundreds of teams, hiring thousands of artists, as well as working and collaborating with a lot of big studios on hiring and going through seeing their process and what they look for as well. This is how you can really rig everything in your favor. So go to allanmckay.com/myreel to get access to it. It's entirely free, as is the 2-hour masterclass as well. allanmckay.com/myreel. That being said, this episode is going to be really cool. We're going to get into some really great stuff. One of the things I think is more important than anything is your reel. Okay, your demo reel is going to prove that you can sit down tomorrow and do the work. It's going to be the one thing that's going to sell you and your services and what you can do for them more than anything else. But there is something more powerful, more effective, more influential that has more clout than your reel, and that is relationships. Okay, and what I want to get into this episode is how to build long-lasting professional relationships, and more importantly, how to do it all the time. So in the past, I might say, go to networking events, go do all this. I'm going to talk about how you can really build this up in an effective way that you will be able to establish relationships that will last you and build upon for you for the rest of your life. Okay, so this is really important. It's one of those things that it's very easy to overlook and think, whatever, I'm just going to let my demo reel speak for itself. But this is more critical than anything. I can't emphasize that enough. So that being said, I want to get right into this episode. In addition to that, if you want to check out the video version of this, you can go to allanmckay.com/156 to access the show notes, all the key takeaways, the quotes, everything, as well as links that I mentioned, including access to this video as well. So that being said, let's dive in. We all know the most important thing is our demo reel or our portfolio because it demonstrates the ability to do the work better than anything else. It's proof of our ability. Forget your education, papers, previous places that you've worked or projects you've worked on. The most important thing is your reel to be able to fast track and demonstrate that you could sit down in a chair tomorrow and do the work. But what's more important than all of these things combined? Relationships. I got a question. What if you knew everybody? And more importantly, what if everyone in the industry that you're in your local area, knew you as well? How easy would it be to get work? More importantly, you would know every single project that they're working on, and they would know when you're available, when your projects are ending, so that way you can start to align your schedules. All of this would allow things to come together pretty easily, right? And more importantly, when it came to negotiating money, or when it came to applying for work, you would skip the queues and not have to apply for a job and introduce yourself, interview, go through the typical steps. It would simply come down to, when are you available? When can you start? So what if you could get out there right now and begin to build these relationships? The ultimate goal for all of us when we're looking for work is to be able to get up in the morning, walk to our desk, check our inbox and see job offer after job offer, and not really have to do much work other than decide, do any of these jobs interest me? That is ultimately what we're all going for. Forgetting to have to apply for work and, like I said, introduce yourself, go through the interview process, compete with all these other candidates. Instead, the work is coming to you, and more importantly, that position has been created specifically for you, meaning that there's no one else right now in the running to get this job. That is the ultimate goal. For a lot of us, that sounds impossible, but it's just a matter of us putting in the time now to begin to facilitate these relationships and begin to put in the effort to nurture and begin to develop relationships with everyone. The more that we do it, the more likely we are to be able to create opportunities for ourselves down the line. Now, a lot of us are instantly going to think, that sounds like work. And it is, but nothing worth it comes easy. Everything that is worth it in the long run requires us to get out of our comfort zone and put in the work, and more importantly, do it now. We want to build our well before we're thirsty. We don't want to get to a point where we need to create relationships, and unfortunately, at that point, it's too late. So it's better to do it just in case, not just in time. The key thing about our demo reel or our portfolio, and I'm going to say demo reel moving forward, but this applies to illustrators, designers, everything in between, is that we need to be able to see past the typical things that most of us think of. We think we send out a reel, we get a job. Really what your demo reel is it's a way to sell your services. It's a way to put you in the spotlight for a moment, to be able to pitch and sell what you can do for them. And the idea of a relationship is that you've gone beyond that. You've sold yourself once and you never need to do it again because they know who you are and they want to work with you. Or more importantly, over time, they'll eventually get the idea that they want to work with you. Then it's just a matter of maintaining those relationships. And any one of those could be worth its weight in gold over time. So check it out. In the beginning of my career, 14 years old, I heard of a new game studio that just popped up in my city. The only one. There was 2 in my country. And they had a partnership with Activision. They were working on a really big video game. And instantly for me, I was like, this is my opportunity. This is my chance to get in and to be able to finally start working. 14 years old. So kind of young, but I wanted to do it. So in the beginning, I did my research. I read up everything I could find about them because I wanted to know where they're located, what they're doing, any events that are coming up, who works there. Okay, everything that I could find because that was the place that I wanted to work. I was determined to work there. So what ended up happening was I found events that they were having that I could attend myself. I ended up finding a chat room online that a few of the guys hung out in. And more I did my due diligence and I learned more about the company. So I began to meet people who were friends with people at the company. And bit by bit, people inside of the studio began to hear about this young kid obsessed with working at the studio. And I wanted to show my reel. I hadn't actually made a reel yet, but I was determined to make one just in time. So bit by bit, I worked really hard. I put my time in, and I eventually got a reel together, my very first demo reel ever. And I sent it in, and I waited because the next day I was going to get my dream job. And I waited, and 2 weeks went by. Finally, I called them up, and hey, did you get my demo reel? They're like, yeah, we got it. Thanks. It's on file. Great stuff. We'll get back to you. So in other words, a soft rejection. So I didn't give up at that point. I tried again. I worked on a new demo reel because the next one was going to be the one that would get me in. And I stayed determined and I kept working at it. But over that time, I managed to build relationships with key people there. So rather than needing to call up and say, did you get it? I would know because I would be talking directly with the people who would review my work. And more importantly, the other people there, I would be able to hand my reel into and say, can you drop it on this guy's desk in the morning? So there's no need to go through the gatekeepers or anything. Just literally have my stuff put in front of the right person and be able to know that it's going to get watched. So again, creating those opportunities for myself was critical because it allowed me to bit by bit step up and begin to create the new opportunity, but also take the initiative to build those relationships and put myself in a position where I wasn't just a regular candidate anymore. I had rapport with them. Now, I've mentioned this before, but Tim Miller, the director of Deadpool, the highest grossing R-rated movie in movie history, and also the director of the new upcoming Terminator reboot, when I was 18 years old, one of the founders of Blur Studio, I applied for a job there as a joke. In other words, I finally got my foot into the industry and I started working on a new reel. This would be my very first reel that wasn't a student reel. This wasn't my personal work. This was actually all my professional work. So at 18 years old, I decided I was going to cut a new reel and I was going to mail it off as a gag and just see what happens. Maybe I would get a rejection notice or something that I could hold out and be like, yeah, that was worth it. I got rejected by Blur. Who knows? And what I was surprised about was that Tim Miller, one of the owners of the studio, emailed me back directly and said, hey, we love your work. Do you want to come work for us? And that to me was a dream come true. Now, being 18 years old, not old enough to drink in the US, I didn't want to move over there at the time, but rather than just leaving that relationship to die and emailing back in a couple of years when I was ready to move across from Australia to the other side of the world. Instead, I nurtured that relationship. I'd email him every couple of months and say, hey, how's it going? Just thought I'd check in. By the way, here's some of my latest work. So bit by bit, we kept that relationship going. And it created much more opportunities than just having a job at Blur if I wanted it. It meant that down the line, there were many more opportunities that would come up. The best part is when I actually was ready to go work at Blur, do you think I needed to apply for a job or go to a job interview? No. I just sent an email. Hey, Tim, I'm in LA. Got any work? That's it. Next day, I was in there working on a dozen really cool projects. So that's all it took because I had created that relationship. I had put in the time. So just by having that one email that I sent out as a gag, it created a lifelong relationship with someone who, down the line, who knows where it could lead to. So when I first applied for a job at Blur, this was simply as a gag. Now, what if I did it intentionally? What if every day I contacted 2, 3, 4, 5 people every single day? That's 5 days a week, 25 people. Or a month, close to 200. A year of doing this, just every couple of days, 2,000 people. What if one of those was to reply? What if 2%, in other words, hundreds, were able to apply? All of these opportunities could last me a lifetime, but it requires you to put in the work. And most of us don't want to. You figure, I'll just let my demo reel speak for itself. I have a friend at Autodesk who works in sales, and not exactly someone with a lot of production experience, but because he has so much face time with every single person, the heads of Weta, heads of Animal Logic, heads of all the big studios in New Zealand and Australia, it meant that constantly he would be getting offers to leave Autodesk to go work for them. Because having that face time, that relationship that's established, it meant that he could literally go work anywhere. Because for them, he's knowledgeable. He knows the back end, he knows people, and all of these things that he's able to offer were allowing him to create the opportunity to work at any of these studios. Rather than saying, hey, what if I create my own opportunities and see where this takes me? Networking, socializing, putting energy into building relationships, all of this sounds like work. And it is at first. But the more you do it, the more it becomes second nature. Soon you start seeing opportunities everywhere you go, and it becomes second nature having to even think about this. So everything at first is work, but after a while it becomes a habit. So just a minute ago I talked about a game studio that I wanted to work at as a kid. I worked really hard at trying to build these relationships and get in front of them every chance I could. And I did everything right. And you know what happened in the end? I worked really hard and I sent in my third reel, and they finally responded. And he said, great work. We love it. We can see how much you've grown every single demo reel that you've sent in. Unfortunately, we can't hire you because we have a transcript of you talking trash about our company on IRC. So what actually happened was, after frustration after frustration, rejection after rejection, someone mentioned this company in a Quake chat room in 1997. And in that one moment of frustration, I end up saying that company's a piece of shit. That company's nothing. And of course, they heard about it, because the internet is very small, and so is the world, especially our industries. So by simply talking trash, being negative, not thinking, realizing that everyone is connected because we all have relationships. So in that one moment of stupidity, I got blacklisted from the company. Big lesson learned, and one that I would never repeat again. It was such a valuable lesson for me to realize in that one moment that doing something stupid, such as bad talking someone or bad talking a company, that can come back and bite you. That can reflect badly on you. I think it's important to realize this, that as much as we focus on building positive relationships, we can slip up, we can have a run-in, a conflict with someone, butt heads, and that can cause problems down the line. So we now know having a reputation and relationships is everything. But what if you have a bad reputation? You've pissed off some people, you've burned some bridges, what then? So I was in Sydney, Australia, back home for a while in 2006 working on Superman Returns. I was working on set as a liaison between the studio and with Warner Brothers. And at the time, in the same building, there was someone at a different studio, and he was talking in Sydney to someone in LA, saying all these things about the movie, divulging information he probably shouldn't have been doing, and trash talking the company that I was with. And what was interesting about that is that that person in the same building, talking to someone on the other side of the world, that person was relaying everything he was saying back to me. Interestingly, later, he mentioned my name. So he's like, wow, I didn't know Allan was in the building. He sent in a reel, applied for a job, and unfortunately had to blacklist him because we couldn't have someone not only talking about private information, but talking negatively about our company. Now, to think that the world is that small, that literally someone 20 feet from me is speaking to someone on the other side of the world, and in real time, that information is coming back. So again, the industry is so small that talking negatively, butting heads, doing all these sorts of things can easily burn a bridge. So what's more expensive, though, than having bad hires in the first place that you then need to fire later on is the negative effect it can have on your team. And again, plenty of stories of hiring people who drove other people to quit. And that's a lot worse when you have happy, content, great workers and someone who's underperforming is driving everyone else for the hills. And this is the worst thing that we can have. So again, it's a lot easier to check if anyone's ever worked with this person before rather than hiring them and flipping a coin and hoping that they work out. I remember one studio described a bad hire as it's like dropping a live hand grenade in the middle of the studio and running for the hills. So id Software, Image Engine, a lot of studios who've been on my podcast have all talked about soft skills and hard skills. So hard skills being, I know how to use Photoshop, I know how to use ZBrush, I know how to use Maya. Now, soft skills are going to be your ability to communicate with people, to be able to get along with people, all the things that typically you expect everyone to have, but not everyone is actually that easy to get along with. So soft skills are very important because of that fact. All of the studios I mentioned have a policy where they'll hire someone with good soft skills over someone with good hard skills. In other words, if you're amazing, if you're the best in the world at what you do, but you're an asshole, we're not going to hire you. But if you're really good at what you do, not as good as the other person, but you're going to get along with everyone, you're in. And that's how it should be. Keep that in mind, that being cocky and thinking you're the best, maybe you are the best. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it all comes down to how you're going to get along with the team. Everyone together is working on a project. If you're doing late hours till midnight and you're next to someone who's driving you insane, it's not going to make the job any easier. I actually remember working with someone who was given that pep talk. They were like, hey man, it wouldn't matter if you were the best in the world at what you did. You know, you've got to get along with everyone else. And he kept cutting the guy off like, no, I am the best in the world. He didn't get it. He couldn't get past it. He's like, no, I am the best. He wasn't getting the message. It doesn't matter how good you are. It matters that you can get along with the team. So Weta Digital in New Zealand worked on Lord of the Rings and many other amazing films. They have a philosophy that they've had from day one. And that is, it's a lot cheaper to ask around than to hire someone, fly them from the States or wherever to New Zealand, do all the paperwork, relocate them, get them set up in a house, pay them and have them working, and then find out that they either lied on their resume or they have a very interesting personality, all of the other quirks. So in other words, it's easy to pick up the phone and call around and find out what this person is like. And again, if you're an asshole, they'd simply throw your reel in the trash. So how impactful is it on your career that they could simply ask someone and then you're instantly dismissed from the company? But more importantly, how powerful would it be instead to have someone who is highly respected at the company walk up to HR or to a supervisor and personally hand in your work and speak highly of you? Complete reverse. To actually recommend you and say, you have to hire this person is brilliant. So reputations are everything, as well as nurturing them as well. This could literally be the key reason that you get the job over everybody else. Think about it. So when it comes to negative relationships, feuds, run-ins with other colleagues, it's not worth it. Be the bigger person. Don't get sucked into squabbles. Rise above it. I would rather be too busy focusing on my career and my own life and my own work to ever give time to spats or any feuds, fights with other people. Nobody benefits from any of this. So like I said earlier, one of the biggest things that all of us are going to say is, well, I'm just going to let my reel speak for itself. And I'm sure you've heard me say before, you could be the greatest artist in the world, but if nobody knows who you are, how are you going to get the work? It's easy to think that we have an amazing reel and that's all it takes to get a job. But think about how studios are structured these days. There are so many people applying for jobs. There are so many positions now compared to 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that most studios have dedicated HR or human resources recruiting people at the company. They have departments for this. On top of that, they have databases. You go to their website, they have an online application form that you put everything in. That isn't so that way it's easy for you. It's because this way it's all automated. It's going to strip it down. It's going to pull all the right keywords and everything else to put into a system. And more importantly, you got to think about it this way, that this doesn't mean that you're going to be put in the right place to be put in front of the right person. What happens instead is that 90% of people are filtered out of the system, because unless you fit the right criteria, there's enough people applying that if you don't have enough experience or any of the other things, you simply get put into that abyss along with most other people. So even if you were to become one of the 10% that gets shortlisted and put into that database, you're still put into a holding pattern. So most people think that as soon as they send their reel in, everyone is going to drop everything, get your reel, and run over to the right supervisor and hand it over and say, hey, watch this reel. So it's not like that at all. Usually what's happening is that you're going to land in a database, and when they need to hire people, that's when they're going to dig into that database. And that 10%, that 200 people or whatever it might be, is what's actually going to get pulled out and handed to the supervisor. Now, even if you were to apply when they are hiring and when they are in need of people, they're still going to wait until that's filled to capacity. 100 people, 200 people, enough that they can hand that over. If you make it into that 10%, you're put into a database. You're put into a spreadsheet with everyone else. All the information that made you stand out, that you used to sell yourself, is stripped away. All you are is a name, an email address, and a link to your reel. I call this the vanilla sandwich because you're sandwiched in with everyone else and you're vanilla, you're stripped away of everything. So think about that for a second. All of the things that you've done to make yourself stand out are all gone. So you literally are on an even keel. Your reel literally will be the one thing that's going to speak for you. But you got to keep in mind that you're probably not the only talented person applying. It's naive to think that we're going to stand out from everyone else. It's naive also to think that the supervisor who finally does look at your reel, if it lands in front of them, that's not their real job. Their job is not to hire people. Their job is to supervise projects, to attend meetings, to make sure that the director or their supervisor, their producer, is happy. They're dealing with a lot. So looking through 200 reels is not exactly a priority. However, something that does need to be done. So keep in mind that the attention span is going to be very, very low. It's literally copy, paste, play. And if it doesn't captivate you in that 1 second, skip through a few times onto the next one. Some reels, if you're hanging too long on the front screen on your title name, turn it off, move to the next one. You'd be surprised how much your reel gets looked over. Now, how do I know this? Because I do it myself. I've hired thousands of people and I've assembled hundreds of teams. So one of the most common things that I see is how volatile this can be, how easy it is for your reel to get looked over. But more importantly, wouldn't it be easier if you could skip the gatekeepers, skip the database, skip the vanilla sandwich, and be able to instead contact the right person directly and be able to then sell yourself? And more importantly, have them know who you are. If they see your name, instantly it's like, oh, Paul's applying for a job. Claire's applying for a job. They know who you are. Instantly, you're going to stand out. More importantly, you could contact them directly because they know who you are. This is the critical part. Or better yet, have them contact you saying, hey, we're looking for an effects person. We're looking for a compositor. Just want to check if you're available before I put it out to the rest of the world. Then it goes from 0.5% to 1,000%, okay? This is where you have the entire attention of that person because they're the one reaching out to you. Focusing on the relationship will beat a reel any day. My other pet peeve is working on a project, and as you get towards the end of the project, having a conversation with colleagues and saying, hey, what do you got lined up after this? And they say, well, thinking, I'm going to take a couple weeks off and cut a new reel and start sending it around. That drives me insane. Why weren't you already doing this during the project? You know the project's going to come to an end eventually. And more importantly, this is where every single lunchtime you should be meeting with studios. You should be catching up for drinks with people after work. You should be going out for sport events on weekends. You should be putting in the time to line things up ahead of time. So that way when you skip one job, you jump onto the next. What I'd rather hear is, I'm trying to decide between this, this, and this. Whichever one pays me the most, or whichever one I'm trying to find is more interesting. Having those opportunities changes everything. So by meeting up with people, by putting in that time, not only do you know of all the projects that are coming up ahead of time, but they know when you're available. So you can start to say, hey, I'm going to come off of this project on this date. When are you guys looking to hire? It's like, well, could you come on like a day or two early? Meanwhile, you can talk to another studio and another studio and say, hey, well, these ones offer me this much money. If you guys can match it, I'll come on board. putting in the time, front loading the work, building those relationships, putting in the effort where it's needed to line things up. So that way you're not needing to take time off and spend all the money that you just made covering yourself while you cut a reel and send it out to everyone. And more importantly, which is better, being high in demand, employed, working on projects, or finishing up and being unemployed and then looking for a job? Having that momentum is everything. And more importantly, having work right now means that you can leverage that when negotiating money. And finally, relationships are just in case, not just in time. So it's easy to think, well, I don't need to be doing all this networking. I've got a full-time job. I'll only worry about that, when I'm looking for work. It's better to be doing this all the time. It doesn't mean that you're trying to look for work. It means that you're building rapport, you're building relationships. By having contacts at other studios, it meant that I can make that call and say, hey, a job that I applied for, it didn't really work out. And them saying, too bad to hear, when can you start? Knowing that you have these options, how is that going to make you feel? Having that security, knowing that you can jump around easily because you know everyone, rather than being in a situation where you have the rug swept out from under your feet. And on top of that, having to then look to build relationships. And the worst part is the other people who have been doing this, they're always going to have the pick ahead of everyone else. So again, the more you do it, the more ingrained you are in everything. And finally, you should be doing this anyway. Being in the industry, being part of it all, it's a community. It's something that you should make part of what you're doing, okay? So it should be a no-brainer that you should be immersing yourself within the industry, within everyone around you, learning, sharing, hanging out. The more you're doing it, the more you're doing it for fun, because it's normal to do that, rather than doing it because maybe I'm going to need a relationship or maybe I'm going to need a favor one day. Instead, it's going to be important because this is a chance to network and learn and build up my community of people around me that I can learn from, and I can get to see all the fun things that they're doing as well. So as soon as you think this doesn't apply to me because I'm not looking for a job, you should be practicing building relationships every single day, just in case, not just in time. So finally, remember, your network is your net worth. So how do you do this? I have my own outreach system that I use every single day. And what I do is simply write down 5 people I want to contact. I get their email address and I simply write a templated email and send it off. But the difference is I'm not focusing on saying, give me a job. I'm focusing on building a relationship. I'm focusing on establishing rapport. So simply reaching out saying, hey, I love your work. Or, hey, big fan of you guys. Just wanted to send out my reel and say hi. We all love to say we hustle. We all love to say that, yeah, I'm hustling. I'm doing my work. I'm putting in the time. The big sexy word that we all love to use. But most of us aren't putting in the work. Nothing worth it comes easy. And you got to be in it to win it. So for all of us who say that, we're getting out there, we're doing the work, the minute that we're required to put in that effort, most of us don't. Which makes you think, if you were one of those people who actually did put in the work, who did put in the time, you're already ahead of everyone else. So simply just going out for drinks with other people, one of your friends is hanging out with some other industry people, go and hang out with them. The more that you surround yourself with other people, put yourself in those opportunities, the more that you're going to build out that network. It's as simple as that. Or what you could do is look for industry events in your city. And if you can't find one, make one. It's not really that hard. All you need to do is go to a bar, say, hey, I'm thinking about bringing 20, 30 people out to this place. Can you offer any discounts, or can we have a dedicated space? Anyone's going to jump at the chance to have a dedicated amount of people drinking at their bar. So they're always going to accommodate that. Then simply emailing some studios and saying, hey, this weekend, thinking about having some drinks. Who wants to come along? It'd be really good to get everyone from the industry together. It might sound a little too easy, but that's because it is. All it takes is firing out some emails. And if no one bites, no one bites. If 3 or 4 people do, cool. More time for you guys to establish a relationship. If you're worried about what to say, then think of some things to say. Ask questions. Do what you would do for anyone else. If you need to, ask one of your friends from work. Bring some of your student friends, whatever it takes. So constantly create your own opportunities. Do it until this is a habit, until you see opportunities in everything that you're doing. More importantly, you want to be prepared. I remember there's a bar in LA that I went to one time. Someone recognized me at the bar, went up, introduced himself, and said, hey, do you mind if you take a second to look at my reel? I was like, okay. I ended up hiring him for a project down the line. And more importantly, I thought it was really crafty that he was able to have his demo reel on his iPhone and be able to simply show it to me in that one moment. I hadn't seen that before, and I thought that was brilliant. So this sort of thing is brilliant because it allows you to take the initiative and take that extra step. If you know that you're going to be around a lot of people who are in the same industry, or you go into an industry event, having your phone, you can pull it out, show someone really quick, and then from there, send your contact information, whatever you want to do. But being prepared like that is worth its weight in gold because you have 100% of their attention at that one moment. So finally, the last thing I want to say is target people at your own level. Don't always just go for the gatekeepers that everybody else is contacting. Look around you as well, because the people in your current network are your social capital. Okay? So just because someone doesn't have the power to hire you doesn't mean that they're not going to have some influence at a studio either right now or down the line. One of my friends that I've known since I was 18 years old directed his first feature film with James Franco, which is coming out next month. Other ones of my friends are feature film directors who are on their third film. Others are running ILM. Others are running Weta. People move on. All of us, hopefully, are going to continue to build up our career over time. So starting out now and building up our career together, this is a chance to get in at the ground level and build those relationships. So don't just target people who have the ability to do something for you. Focus on just being genuine and building relationships every chance you get, and try to build value and give value as much as you can. In addition, it's not that hard to be able to find people who are working at certain studios that you want to work for, and you could always find them on LinkedIn, email them and say, hey, saw your website or saw your reel, really amazing work, just wanted to introduce myself and say hi, and then begin to build that relationship. Again, people are able to have influence of other people who do make the decisions. So being able to get to know people and have that rapport, it means that when they think that they're comfortable recommending you, they would be happy to then go to their bosses and say, hey, I think you should hire Claire. I think you should hire Paul. So keep that in mind again, that people at your level still have a lot to give. Don't just target people who may be able to do something for you. And always remember that your network is your net worth. So finally, we all know that relationships are critical, right? So what are you doing today to build yours? Our focus should be every day putting in the time to build up new relationships. But our focus should always be on nurturing them. Creating relationships and just firing at your reel and never really following up isn't creating a relationship. It's like two ships in the night passing. You have that one moment of connection and you move on. Nurturing the relationships is everything. That's what's going to matter down the line. That's how I could go work at Blur and have that relationship with Tim Miller and all these other people that I have put in the time to get to know, because I established a relationship and then I kept building on that over the years and years and years. And now because of that, I'm grateful that I have a lot of opportunities that I wouldn't have otherwise. And vice versa, I'm always giving out the chance and opportunities I can wherever I can as well. But more importantly, put in the effort and put in the time to give value wherever you can, and don't focus on relationships being so transactional, but more be genuine with it and focus on the big picture. The more people you know, the better off you're going to be, but more importantly, together, all of you are able to better and grow your network.
Okay, so I hope you found this episode valuable. Again, I think it's one of those things that, we kind of glaze over a little bit and think, whatever, but this is such a critical thing, and not all of you are going to listen and pay attention to this, but I guarantee the ones that do are going to be the ones that are going to be able to step ahead and have that upper hand over everyone else. So just keep that in mind. It's such a powerful thing. You always talk about you got to hustle and do all these things, but we don't do it. This is a chance to do it, because this is what hustling is, building relationships and building up your social capital. So that being said, I'm going to do a follow-up episode, not next episode, but the episode after, 158. And I'm going to talk about how to implement all this, how to put it all in action. So in other words, how to every single day for the rest of your life be building up leads. I want you to be able to generate at least 200 leads a month moving forward. So this is going to be a follow-up. It's going to be highly actionable. The entire episode is going to be step-by-step how to do this. It's going to be very effective. Now, if you haven't noticed, over time, these have been building up. These are all key steps because I want to really dominate and cover all of this stuff. So if you go back to episode 150, that was how to get anyone's email address. And this episode is all about the relationship part of it and how to apply that. Next episode is how to build an outreach system so you can start to build up contacts and begin to apply this every single day. So as you can tell, these all kind of start to fit together into a system that you can apply, because now you can go and target people, get their email address, start building these relationships and building a system to do it every single day and nurture those relationships long term. So bit by bit, you're building out a system here that you can apply to maximize your success. So that being said, I'll be back next episode. Until then, go get the free Ultimate Demo Reel book at allanmckay.com/myreel. And finally, if I haven't thrown enough links at you, I was just thinking about this a moment ago, but if you want to follow me on Instagram, I say that because right now I'm actually posting about 3 times a day. I'm putting out so much content around Instagram that if you want more stuff and you want kind of that daily crack that's going to help your career, I'm putting out videos every single day. I'm posting a lot of information, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, a lot of really cool things. So if you're not already following me on Instagram, my Instagram handle is Allan McKay Official. So follow me, hit me up and say hi. I'm pretty much replying to every single person on there. I think I'm finally kind of hooked on Instagram at the moment. I'm enjoying it. I'm getting to really use that as my main platform that right now I'm posting about 3 times a day and I'm having a blast with it. So if you want, Allan McKay Official on Instagram. Next episode, I'm going to be back with Chris Bailey, who is a best-selling author with a new book called Hyperfocus, and this is all about hacking your productivity. So Chris is good friends with David Allan and Laura Vanderkamp, both who have been on the show, who are both TED speakers. Chris also is a TEDx speaker as well. And we get into a lot of really amazing stuff with flow and how to get into that hyper-focused state. So that being said, I'll be back with that episode. The one following that is going to resume where we're at right now with building out our outreach system. All right, get the book. I'll talk to you soon. Rock on.